Thank you for listening to the 26th episode of the Career Planning Show, which aims to help you launch and grow a fulfilling career. Welcome to the Career Planning Show. Our guest today is Mary Bajorek. How are you, Mary?
I am doing fantastic. It's great to be here, Alex.
Well, it's really great to have you with us. Mary, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Mary Bajorek. I am a work-life coach, which means that I work with people who are in transition points in their career life. It could mean that they're changing roles and kind of feeling stuck and overwhelmed. It could be people that are thinking about changing jobs. So they're kind of noticing that something in their work isn't working, or they want to be doing something different because of life circumstances, or they're feeling stuck and kind of overwhelmed in general in their work. And so I help them and guide them to figure out kind of what is most important to them and how to live it out in their life. Essentially, how to have their work be expression of who they are rather than have it go the other way. And for us trying to fit ourselves into a certain mold of what work and how we are supposed to be at work looks like.
That sounds really interesting. When you were younger and you were mapping out your career, thinking about what you should do in terms of work, was this something that you knew you'd get into, or can you walk us through your educational and career journey so far?
Yeah, absolutely. No, career coaching was not on my radar at all. In high school, I actually thought I was going to go into math. I was like, I'm definitely going into math. But it's not the degree that I ended up doing. I actually ended up studying at the University of Waterloo in a program called Knowledge Integration. It's an interdisciplinary program where the idea is to become an expert in a variety of different fields, to act as a bridge between different disciplines because the world's problems are more complex than kind of the silos that we put them in. And we need people in between these different disciplines to be able to talk to one another. I loved it. It was one of the best experiences that I've had. I've learned so much around problem solving, design thinking, which are still skills that I am using to this day. Because of the program, it was very open-ended. We kind of had core courses and you could decide where you wanted to take your path. I really loved working with people. I did a couple of different internships, from working at a winery to working kind of at the visitor center and working with new students coming in. And I also worked at Disney World, which is the best customer service provider in the world. And that's where I wanted to work there. And from there, I actually went and worked at an inventory management software company as a customer service agent, kind of working with people closely, one-on-one, and noticed that I wanted to do more work in kind of shaping people's experiences directly. So I then moved over to a company downtown Toronto, King and Bay, to be a user experience designer for a financial consulting agency, which essentially means if you have a banking app and you're trying to make a transfer, somebody had to think about where to put the button in order for it to be the easiest to find that experience. Someone had to talk to people, see what worked and what didn't work. And in particular, for a financial consulting agency, it means working with banks or credit unions or kind of finance institutions. And it was a really good job on paper. Again, King and Bay, kind of the corporate lifestyle, but something was missing for me. I wasn't really working with people one-on-one. It wasn't the environment that I really wanted to be a part of. I was commuting an hour and a half one way every single day, so a lot was being taken out of me, but I really didn't know what steps to take next. And I've already kind of switched jobs a couple of times. And at that time, I went on a hiking road trip with my friend through the Southwest United States. If you've never been, I highly recommend. Zion and like Utah in general is absolutely beautiful. And there was a moment on that trip that essentially changed my life and was the pivotal moment of how I got to where I am right now, which was the experience of climbing this gigantic rock called Angel's Landing. It's one of the most dangerous hikes you can do. You're like crawl up these chains. We woke up at 6 a.m. so we could get there before like people got up there too. And we kind of scrambled up the rock, beautiful view, and scrambled back down. And I had this moment of thinking to myself, if I can do this, I can do anything. So I went back to my job and I quit it that day. Give my 2-week notice. I don't know if I'd recommend that for everyone. Definitely not a thing to kind of do off the bat. But I didn't have any financial responsibilities. I didn't have any kind of family.
Did you have any financial cushion though?
Yes, I
Okay, that's
actually
good.
saved up. I saved up knowing when I was working at the financial consulting agency, I was saving up money, I think anticipating this happening in some way. So there was some subconscious happening. And I gave myself a period of about 3 months of like, if I don't figure it by 3 months, I can always go back to it. That's the thing. I felt like I could always go back to a similar type of work. So I drove 3 days to Halifax to do like a 2-month retreat. And every single day I woke up being like, what am I supposed to be doing? During that time, I read the book Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. I would highly, highly recommend it as a book for anybody wanting to figure out what they want to be doing in their life, but also in their career life. Every single chapter ends with like an exercise to do. And so I went through those, and to this day, I have my Odyssey plans kind of like for the next 5 years at the time. I'm also a huge learner, so I decided to take a life coaching course during that time, and I fell in love. I fell in love with the problem solving aspect, the sharing of knowledge, and it was something that I wanted to give it a try. It was the closest thing that I had about bringing in autonomy and being able to work remotely and kind of arrange my life around my work, or have work be a part of my life rather than arrange my life around my work. And so I gave it a try with prototyping a couple of times. That's what they talk about in Designing Your Life. Just like give it a try. Don't kind of jump head into it, like head straight into it, but give it a try. So I ran a couple of workshops, did a couple of free sessions with my friends and family. And then in 2020, in January, so it'll be 2 years almost exactly, I opened my coaching business. And I gave myself a year. I always, with any job that I start, I give myself a year. If within the year, if after a year I'm still learning and still like it, I'm going to keep doing it. But until then, it's like, okay, once you go through a year, go through the entire cycle. And yeah, it's been 2 years, and it's been the most rewarding and challenging experience I've ever had. And I honestly can't imagine doing anything else.
That's brilliant. And as you were making that decision as to what to do with your career, obviously the experience that you had at the retreat and the opportunity to reflect, which is something that not many of us have the opportunity to do. A lot of us are in a very busy environment, and we're delivering, and we barely find enough time to sit down and reflect when it comes to what's most important to us. Do you have any thoughts about how one can go about identifying what are some of the most important aspects of their lives, and how to go about prioritizing those?
That's a great question. I love what you're bringing up about our lives are so busy, and there isn't space. And I actually want to challenge that a little bit. And I heard a quote once saying, if you're in a hurry, slow down. So if there's so much busyness in your life, there is actually so much value in creating even a small space of reflection, because there's so much impact that can happen in that small time that will actually influence the busyness. We're oftentimes busy because we don't have a sense of the priorities that we hold, and how to orient our lives to that can often kind of feel like a rag doll being pulled in all these different directions. So taking even an hour out can make a big difference. And so it's kind of like the first portion of it. And oftentimes it's in our busy lives, it's hard to think about what's important, because it feels like this really, really large thing that is overwhelming and we'll need to get it right. And I would actually say that it's important to remember that this assessment of what is the most important in our lives and in careers is actually an ongoing process. So it's not that we have to figure it right away, but figure out what is the most important for us at this time in our lives. One of the ways that I've often actually done it is a simple exercise that like a values exercise, where you narrow down from around 90 values to your top 5. And it's a process from which you identify what isn't important to you and what is. It's actually the worksheet that I have free on my website, so like it can be accessed easily. And it is a really powerful exercise to figure out what is important to us, because our career and our personal lives are actually more intertwined than we think they are. Once we figure out what is important to us in our lives, we can actually then extrapolate to get a sense of how are we aligning our work with it. Oftentimes, for example, like if autonomy is important to you in your life, then it's really valuable to see it in your work and be able to advocate for yourself to have more autonomy or to switch into different roles. If family is the most important thing to you, to know that your work and career is then a reflection of then that you make time and space for family. And the second part that you asked was like prioritizing.
Mm-hmm.
Once we identify the priorities that we have in our lives, it's essentially then again a process of figuring out what works at the time. So like we might think that our priorities are like family and then autonomy, community, and the environment. So getting a sense of how do the priorities relate to one another by trying things out and having, okay, if the family is the most important thing, how does that influence how I care about the environment and the autonomy that exists in our lives. So it's like experimenting and then getting data back and iterating on it continuously.
Mm-hmm. And if one of the items that stands out as you do such an assessment is the fact that your work and your work environment are very, very valuable to you beyond just the fact that you get paid for your work, but it's really important because you realize that you spend 30, 40, 50, have a friend 65, 70 hours a week at work.
Yeah.
And you realize that the time that I spend there is oftentimes more significant than the amount of time that you get to spend with family or others, and therefore it is so important to kind of calibrate your approach to where it is that you want to spend that chunk of time each and every day. How would you approach a conversation with someone who has in their mind that the grass is always greener on the other side, as they're thinking about their career? They're working at company X and they realize that, oh, organization Y in this other sector, or company Z in this other part of the country, it looks really cool based on their website and social media shares, and the one person that spoke at that conference, I really would want to work for them based on, that very, simple surface level presentation of what the organization is like. Do you have any thoughts on how one can go about assessing whether the grass is greener on the other side before they really step in with both feet?
Yeah. I love that question. I feel like we often get stuck in like, oh, the thing further away that's not here is far more interesting. The first step is I think really getting honest with yourself about what is it about why is it that you're looking at that company. Is it because you're running away from something, or something is not okay in your environment right now? And being honest and clear with yourself whether that's something that you can control, that you can change. Is it that your relationship with your boss is frustrating you? And take ownership of how much of it is your responsibility, and how much of it is something that you do have control over and influence over. And then getting a sense of what is it that you want to move towards. We're always more motivated to move towards something, towards the positive, rather to running away from something. Because if we run away from something and we don't actually identify that, it is very likely it's just going to follow us into this new place. So the assessment of the grass is greener on the other side, then getting clear about like, why am I moving? Why are the reasons that I feel attracted to that? Can I and what are the impacts of making that change? Because we're really bad at projecting ourselves into the future. We think we're going to be happier than we are right now. And to take in what are the impacts of changing? Do you like change? How do you feel being in a new environment? What is the social component of it, and how do you relate to work? Like, what is your relationship to work in the first place? I have the exercise of thinking about, if work was a person, how would they look like to you? Are they a friend? Are they a collaborator? Are they a like a minor, and you just like getting called that? Is it a boss that yells at you all the time? How do you think about work? And then from there, figure out what is the relationship with work that you want to have, and where that might happen. What's even sometimes less important, what is it exactly that you do, but how you relate to it, because over time you can change things and influence things.
That's really interesting. And associated with that, I wonder, as one looks at a job description and they're trying to identify what it is that job description really reveals about the role and about the culture of the organization and about whether they are indeed a good fit. Oftentimes, job descriptions are just copy pasted from a previous job description, and no deep thought is placed into, are we really giving a true picture to this job candidate as to what the work environment would be like in the specific team within our organization? Are we really crafting our job description in a way where it's truly reflective of our company, or did we repurpose a job description from one of our competitors just because it fit the job posting that we're about to put forward, which it does happen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, quite often, and it almost becomes an exercise of realizing what is really being said in this job posting, and what is it that me as a candidate I should be understanding as I'm putting forward my resume and cover letter and preparing myself for the interview. Do you have any thoughts, insights as to how someone might want to approach looking at a job description and figure out if that particular role is indeed a good fit for their life or where they want to take their career?
Mm-hmm. I love that question, what you're speaking to around the job descriptions and them being copy and pasted, and oftentimes not being very reflective of what the job actually is. I think it's a larger problem than even the companies themselves, but how we are approaching work and orienting very often companies to like filling seats rather than looking and finding people that are wanting to work as a collective towards a larger goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something to get a sense of, is like, what is the culture of the company? How do they even think about the work that they are doing? Is it a like a factory, we just need to get people to fill spots to do the work, or is it actually a collective experience of moving towards a goal together? So that's kind of like a high level orientation to getting a sense of the work. A step kind of below that is, again, when a candidate thinks about looking for a job, or a person is looking for a job, I would first invite them to get really clear about what is it that they want from the job itself. One format of it is to create 3 columns that say the job must have, it's nice to have, and can't have. This then creates a lens for yourself to orient to what is there are things the most important, what are the things that can be kind of that they're negotiable, and what are the things that you're definitely going to stay away from. It is then a filter to use when you're going through job descriptions, and through even then an interview process, because then you have a sense of what is it that you want and how does the job fit you, rather than you trying to mold yourself. It creates kind of stakes in the ground that you can then work with. In terms of how to think about the job description itself, it is, first of all, being aware that a lot of them are copy and paste, kind of seeing little notices of even how they use language. Oftentimes things like superstar and ninja are actually quite an immature level of a company. So getting a sense of what are they even saying between the lines, and how they're presenting their information. Inclusion is also a really big thing. So it's seeing the job description as kind of a lens to look into what the company is, and how further interactions with them might look like, because during the interview process, it feels like we're being tested very often. It feels like we're the ones that are like is a pass or a fail whether a company will hire us or not. It kind of brings up the whole school testing culture, but in reality, there's actually a dance that exists between the employer and the person who wants to seek the job, because people who desire to kind of contribute to the world and a company and a collective, essentially, of people wanting to do that thing, will not treat the person that they are wanting to employ as disposable, which is again kind of a larger issue I think in the job market and how we think about work and career.
Mm. Yeah, there's a lot of layers to unpack there, and we could definitely go quite deep on it. I wonder if we can shift gears and think about one of your clients, someone that you've helped in the past. Would you be able to share an experience of someone who you've helped? And because in my mind, that's probably one of the biggest joys as a life and career coach, is to see a change occur in a client's life.
Oh, yes, that's one of my favorite things to experience. The reason why I coach and why I love doing what I'm doing is because I want to lift people up. Like, I want them to express themselves in the world and contribute to the larger whole. And one of those people was a client of mine who finished their master's degree and was working for actually a research company that was working on COVID things. So like very relevant, very kind of big. And when they started working with me, they realized this job wasn't what they thought it was going to be. They were like, I don't know what to do. I feel stuck right now. Like the contract might be, the contract is renewing. Do I want to renew? Do I not renew? Kind of a work situation wasn't what they wanted. And so the first step that we went to was identified what is it that's most important to them in their life and in their work. Such things as work-life balance came out, as using particular kind of programming skills that they weren't using at the time. What other things were there? Being able to have a supportive and kind of learning environment, learning skills that are soft skills that are able to be transferable, and they recognized how much of that wasn't actually happening in their work. Oftentimes awareness is just the first step to making a change, and recognizing, oh, how much am I giving up and how much am I not actually being in alignment with myself, was even helpful to be like, okay, there actually needs to be a change that happens. From then we identified possible paths. Oftentimes it's just like, well, I don't want to be doing this anymore. What do I do now? We oftentimes know. It just feels overwhelming. So the process we went through was actually Odyssey planning, which is in the Designing Your Life book, which is a planning for the next 5 years, and planning in the sense of like, if I was to go down this path, how would this look like over the next 5 years? How would my life look look like. So it's an imagining exercise to get a sense of, oh, if this is actually the path I would go, these are the things that would need to be happen, and these are the things that I know and what I don't know. So we identified 3 paths that they were thinking of. So there's one doing their PhD, another one going into industry, and another one going into nonprofit. And through that, they recognized, and this is kind of how happening over a couple of weeks and a couple of months, they recognized that they were actually over romanticizing the nonprofit business, because I was asking them, like, what do you know? Have you ever worked for a nonprofit? Do you know what this experience is? It came out that they really wanted to make an impact on the world, and they didn't want to go into industry because they were afraid they were going to just have to sacrifice impact to the work that they were doing. So it was also an exercise that further clarified what is it that they wanted to be doing, and what is it that they had still questions about. So I then invited them to do kind of little prototypes, like talk to anyone who's in the nonprofit business, look into some companies, look into some PhDs. How do you feel about that? How was your experience of your master's degree, and where are you finding yourself at? And from there, through some prototypes, they recognized that they actually wanted to go into industry and wanted to work with some companies that were then fulfilling their can't have, must have, nice to have, and can't have. And so they applied to a couple different organizations in different kind of different industries, but kind of different companies, different types of companies, a really large one, a really small one. And then we had conversations kind of, again, a large company, how do you think you'd feel that? What's important to you about this one? What's not important to you in this one? We also went through the fears of being rejected, fears of kind of being overwhelmed with so many things to do at once, and created strategies to detangle from the work that they were doing at the moment, because they were still in the environment they were in. We actually talked about like breaking up with work, and just going to work to be there for that amount of time, knowing that they were going to shift into something else, and that changed their experience quite a bit. So over a couple of months, they applied. They kind of got down to 2 or 3 companies that they interviewed with, and they're right now actually working. They just finished their kind of training at the company they decided to go with, and they're like, I love this. I'm so happy I did it. And it was that whole journey of recognizing what's important, and then making small steps towards it. And they know that they will be learning there, and maybe over time they will again switch to something different, and it doesn't feel like they're stuck, but feel far more agency, capacity, and being like, oh, this is I feel much more grounded in the work that I'm doing, knowing I have capacity to shift and adjust and align my life continuously as life changes.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that client story. I find it fascinating to hear how we're able to help others through our work in different ways. Yeah, I pass it back to you if there's any final thought, and maybe share how someone can get in touch with you.
Yeah, I think a final thought that I have is just encouraging people to keep trying things out. I think we often get really afraid of trying, especially in our career lives, because it's supposed to be a straight path. We're supposed to know what we want to be doing from the beginning, but it's not. It's really wavy, and that's part of the adventure and the joy of it, and knowing that we can't really fail. We think doing equals success and failure, but doing is actually a continuous learning and doing process over and over again. So I want to encourage people to just like try things out, experiment. You'll never know what might come out of it.
That's great. And your website?
My website would be lifeworthlovingcoaching.com. And you can also find me on Instagram and on Facebook. It'll be lifeworthloving.coaching, and links will be down below.
All right. Well, Mary Bajorek, thank you so much for being a guest on the Career Planning Show.
Thanks so much for having me, Alex. It was a joy.
If you enjoyed this interview with Mary Bajorek, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and share it with a friend.